In the late 1960s, when motorsport was pushing the limits of speed and sanity, one racing series dared to go further than anyone else: the Canadian American Challenge Cup, or simply Can-Am. There were almost no rules. Unlimited horsepower, radical aerodynamics, and the world's bravest drivers piloting machines that really did bend the laws of physics. It was a brief era that saw engineering genius meet raw ambition, and the result was a racing series that was very special, but also a racing series that was too insane for its own good. This is the story of how Can-Am became the most extreme racing series ever conceived, and why it burned out as fast as it rose to prominence. The concept behind Can-Am was simple: create a racing series for Group 7 sports cars with as few restrictions as possible. The FIA's Group 7 did not require its cars to be produced for consumers, so anyone who entered the category was free to come up with a purebred race car. There were virtually no limits on engine displacement, aerodynamics, tires, or car dimensions. Group 7 cars had to have room for 2 seats and be enclosed in bodywork. That was really it. If a car could pass a basic safety inspection and survive the race, it was allowed to compete. This freedom attracted both major manufacturers and private builders eager to test the boundaries of technology. The result was a racing series unlike any other, a playground for innovation and power. Can-Am's first season took place in 1966, organized by the Sports Car Club of America and the Canadian Automobile Sport Clubs, hence the name Can-Am. The schedule mixed legendary circuits like Mosport, Road America, and Riverside. Crowds were drawn by the spectacle: thunderous engines, futuristic designs, and speeds few had ever seen. The driver lineup in the series, especially in the early years, was a who's who of road racing in the late 60s and early 70s. The first season was won by John Surtees, just 2 years removed from his F1 title. Jim Hall, Mark Donohue, Mario Andretti, Parnelli Jones, George Fulmer, Dan Gurney, Phil Hill, Denny Holmay, Jackie Ickx, Bruce McLaren, Jackie Oliver, and Peter Revson were some of the names who instantly flocked to Can-Am. Early competition was diverse and unpredictable, with teams from McLaren, Lola, Shadow, and Chaparral trading wins. But soon, one team would set a standard that the rest could only chase. From 1967 to 1971, McLaren dominated Can-Am completely. Led by Bruce McLaren and Denny Holm, the team perfected both engineering and teamwork. Their Papaya machines, particularly the M8 series of cars, were purpose-built for reliability and power. By 1969, the McLaren M8B was producing over 700 horsepower, which was staggering for the time, and the team won every single race that season. It was a display of technical precision and consistency that made McLaren nearly untouchable. Yet even as they reigned, a new challenger was preparing to take Can-Am to an even more extreme level. That challenger was Porsche. In the early 1970s, Porsche entered Can-Am with the goal of building the most powerful race car in history. The result was the 91710, followed by the even more fearsome 91730. Both cars used turbocharged flat 12 engines that pushed the boundaries of physics and common sense. In qualifying trim, the 91730 reportedly produced nearly 1,600 horsepower, a number so high that even professional drivers described it as overwhelming. Mark Donohue piloted the car to total dominance in 1973, winning 6 of 8 races and setting speed records that would stand for years. This, of course, is the same car that Donohue set the closed course record with at Talladega in 1975, with an average lap speed of 221.120 miles an hour. And this record would stand until 1986 when Rick Mears broke it in an Indy car at Michigan. I think the thing that Can-Am is most remembered for, besides its most dominant cars, are the cars that really twisted what the idea of a race car was in one way or another. For me, when I think about Can-Am, I think about the 1970 Chaparral 2J. This car featured 2 fans adapted from a military tank engine that actively sucked air from beneath the car, creating constant downforce regardless of speed. This sucker car design gave it extraordinary cornering ability, effectively pioneering the concept of ground effects. Although it showed tremendous potential, reliability issues and complaints from rival teams led to its ban after just 1 season. Despite Can-Am lacking restrictions, the FIA had banned movable aero devices for Group 7 prototypes, and other teams successfully argued that the fans were a movable aero device. The SCCA agreed, and the 2J was sent packing to the dustbin of history. Although it had a short life, the 2J profoundly influenced future race car design, inspiring later innovations in Formula 1 and beyond. Years before the Brabham BT46B fan car intimidated F1, the 2J scared the competition in Can-Am. But the same qualities that made Can-Am spectacular also made it unsustainable. The cars were becoming too expensive to develop and maintain, and smaller teams had no hope of keeping up with Porsche's engineering and financial resources. The series that had once encouraged open competition was now dominated by a single, virtually unbeatable machine. The oil crisis of 1973 only worsened the situation. Rising fuel prices, shrinking sponsorships, and declining fan interest pushed the series to the brink. By 1974, the original Can-Am Championship was over. An attempt was made later in the decade to revive Can-Am using modified Formula 5000 cars, but the magic was gone. It simply wasn't the same Can-Am as before. The innovation, the excess, and the sense of danger that defined the original series couldn't be recreated under stricter rules and tighter budgets. However, the revival of Can-Am still saw big names like Alan Jones, Jeff Brabham, and Al Unser Jr. win championships. A 17-year-old Paul Tracy won the final race of 1986 and got himself some notoriety. With the rise of kart and IMSA in the 1980s, Can-Am was not long for this world. The economics simply didn't make sense, and manufacturers and teams threw their weight around in those two series rather than in Can-Am. The series, at least as everyone knew it, ended after 1987, and the series was converted into the American IndyCar Series, a minor league open-wheel series for old kart and Formula 5000 machines. Still, the legacy of Can-Am endures. The technology developed there, advanced aerodynamics, turbochargers, lightweight materials, and downforce management, shaped the next generation of motorsport. Formula 1, endurance racing, and even modern hypercars owe a lot to the innovations tested during those few wild years. More than anything, Can-Am proved what could happen when engineers were allowed to chase pure performance without compromise. Can-Am didn't fade away because it failed. It ended because it was too successful at its goals. It showed what was possible when racing went beyond limits, and why sometimes limits exist for a reason. The series stands as the ultimate representation of an era that saw great leaps in technological advancement. The conditions that allowed for Can-Am to exist in the first place no longer do, but the lessons learned will always be there. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.